Welcome back to today's episode of Tort Talk. We have an action-packed schedule to go through today, so let's hop into it. We have Joe Fantini once again and Jon Robinson. Thank you for being here both today.
Thanks for having me.
So hopping into the first item we want to talk about, Talcum Powder. We received some good news with the first post-bankruptcy Bellwether trial being scheduled in California State Court. How does this impact what is going on with the litigation overall?
Yeah, Mark, really good news that we have this Bellwether trial scheduled. As we've talked about before, these trials really help to drive the settlement. So after J&J's failed third bankruptcy, we've been working up to that point throughout the 6 months. So beginning of November, the trial is scheduled in California State Court. Usually we see them taking about a month. So I think post-Thanksgiving, we'll have a verdict in that case. While that trial is ongoing, the settlement mediations is still picking up steam in the MDL. So we had the initial session between the newly appointed settlement committee for the plaintiff side in the beginning of September. They're gathering additional details about exposure, specific diagnosis, things about the plaintiffs to hopefully get us towards a resolution. I don't think we're going to have a settlement in 2025, but these are definitely positive developments. And if we can't get a settlement in the MDL, look to see some more Bellwether trials in the beginning of 26.
That's good news to hear, Talc, just continuing to move forward. We were stuck at a stalemate for so long, so it's great to see progress there. I'm excited to talk about something that has been around for a really long time. We, every once in a while, talk about legacy mass torts here, ones that have been going on for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're gonna talk about Bair Hugger, which has been going on for nearly 10 years. I remember Bair Hugger almost a decade ago. Bair Hugger is the surgical device or post-surgical device that is meant to prevent infection after a surgery, but it actually wound up potentially or allegedly causing infections. There's almost 11,000 cases filed in that MDL. How do you see that progressing? We're seeing potentially a little bit of movement there.
Right. Like you said, John, this is one that's been around almost 10 years. The MDL was formed in 2016. It was a windy road. Basically, our experts got excluded. We ended up appealing that up to higher circuit court. The decision of the district court got overruled. Our experts were allowed back in. Then we had COVID. Then we had the continued delays with that. So this case really dragged on and there wasn't significant movement for 4 or 5 years. Here in 2025, we've seen some progress and there's been a couple Bellwether trials. The most recent one was earlier this year in Eastern District of Pennsylvania. It was a mistrial because there was a hung jury. And what the court recently did is identified the next wave of 150 remand cases. So these are individual cases that are going to be worked up for trial, not in the district court where the MDL is pending, but rather in the plaintiff's home court where they would have filed the cases. The idea is that when we spread these cases out over the country, different judges in different courts will have more resources collectively to get these plaintiffs to trial. So we started that process. We're working up these initial cases. The trials are going to be sometime first half of 26, but this is putting some added pressure on the defendants. As you mentioned, we're seeing a continued uptick in the filing of these cases, about 11,000 total cases. People are hoping we're going to get some sort of resolution. 3M has a lot of pressure, a lot of problems going on with various litigations. They're really the main defendant in the PFAS AFFF. So I don't think we're going to get a conclusion here in 2025, but I'm optimistic in 26 we'll finally be able to bring this litigation to an end after about a decade of fighting.
Very exciting to finally see some progress on that tort. Moving to another one that's pretty popular that's kind of been flying under the radar, toxic baby food. We have an MDL formed and an important hearing coming up in December. What should we expect to see in this litigation?
Like you said, this is one that's been flying under the radar. There was a lot of buzz about a year ago.
I remember that like a lot.
A bad mass tort made perfect. And ultimately, there was an MDL that was formed. That happened in April 25. A little bit different approach in this litigation. Usually, we don't get to the causation and the expert rulings until years down the line. So, for example, in the AFFF litigation, what's kind of driving this potential settlement was the Daubert hearings that were scheduled where the judge was going to rule on and make a determination about what cancers are viable. Here in this litigation, we're seeing a lot more of that discovery up front. And we have that hearing in December. And after that, early January sometime, I anticipate we'll get a ruling from the court. And that's basically going to tell us if these cases are going to be viable in the MDL and able to move forward. Like we usually see, we do have some state consolidated action going on. Right now, it's centralized in California in the JCCP. So we have two avenues there, but a lot of excitement's building again for this litigation. And I think it's going to be one of the bigger ones in 26.
Off the top of your head, do you happen to know how many cases are filed in the MDL so far?
I do. So there's a little bit over 210 cases pending. So remember, most states have something called a minor tolling statute, which means the statute of limitations doesn't begin to run until the minor is of age 18 years, and then the statute runs. I'm not their attorney. I can't give them any legal advice, but maybe that's a reason why we haven't seen a ton of cases filed just yet.
You know, we had talked about this earlier, but I think there's a desire to avoid what happened with Zantac, right? Potentially makes sense to hold on to these cases right now and then determine next steps after this hearing that comes up in December.
Exactly. That was maybe a lesson learned from Zantac, like you mentioned there. A lot of people got hurt, but one bad ruling kind of ended that whole litigation. So while we have a speedier docket in the MDL, the plaintiffs aren't prejudiced, and we'll be able to get this ruling and then see what's the best court for these really injured, severely injured minor plaintiffs.
A good topic for us to transition into has really been the hot topic of the week, and we're saving the best for last here. We have heard many firms talking about this Roblox litigation, and I'm sure it is going to be a big focus of attention at MTMP, which Joe, Marc, myself will be at MTMP, and we look forward to seeing you all there. In the coming weeks, we'll have some details about some things we'll be doing at MTMP. But Roblox has seen reports of lawsuits filed across the country. Obviously, there's no MDL yet. Do you see this being the next big mass tort as we've been hearing on the street?
Yeah, John, I think it is going to be the next big one. So these cases are horrific. These are horrible facts. Again, minor plaintiffs that are being sexually abused, even kidnapped. And so we're seeing these cases filed across the country, as you mentioned. So we have the JPML hearing at the end of the month here in September. And basically that's the committee that decides on the motions of whether or not an MDL should be centralized or consolidated. So there's no motion currently pending to get these cases in an MDL. I think it will either happen at the end of this year or in the first quarter of 2026. So probably within the next 6 months, we'll have an MDL here. And I'm hearing, unfortunately, there's hundreds or thousands of cases. Just like we're saying, there's a lot of victims in the social media or video game addiction. This Roblox litigation sounds like it's going to be huge. These people really need our help. So this is one, along with what we just talked about, the toxic baby foods, that I think is going to be the focus in 2026.
Lots of news to be expected over the coming weeks across all these different case types as we head into MTMP, and everybody gets an opportunity to learn much more in detail from a lot of the leaders of these litigations. Once again, Joe, thank you so much for joining us for the best 10 minutes each week in Mass Torts. We will see everybody at MTMP. More details coming up in the next few weeks. Thanks for joining Tort Talks.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for having me, guys.